Harry, Ronan, good to be back.
Yep, definitely. Ronan's been obviously very unlucky with his injury, but again, at least he's come back in now, and he'll be fresh into this block. Big block of games coming up. You'll hear it from every coach and player, I'm sure, over the next little while. But it's a huge block of games for provincial and club teams, isn't it? So URC, the way the competition is now, with the 18 game format, so it's you see it's pretty tight in certain parts of the table, and there's big consequences with European qualification, all the rest, into next season. And then obviously with the European games in this block as well. So those 4 games, because it's only 4 games, it just means there's less margin for error, isn't there? Room for slip-ups on any given day. So anyway, back to the original question on Ronan and Harry. Yeah, it's good to have those guys back in. Ronan played the early round, then picked up what looked like was pretty innocuous at the time, but he'd done a bit more damage, and the guys have been careful in how to try to manage him back in. Harry again came back in. He was due to play club on one of the weekends just to get him a game pre-November, but unfortunately he had a setback at that stage as well. So anyway, he's back since. So hugely important for the 2 lads, because hopefully play a big part in the next 10 weeks.
We're kind of getting back to normal selection, but just going back to the last game against Chile and the selection of AIL players, are we likely to see that link again?
I think across the board, it's that challenge, isn't it? Like, so you've the professional teams and the structures. So like obviously we've our URC now, South African teams arriving. It's kind of trying to get that the next tier down. What's the development? So from whatever schools and clubs underage into Irish under 20s, and it's what's the next step for players. So we need to be a little bit creative in terms of some of the games that we have. So that from a Chile point of view, that game, Chile had qualified for the World Cup in America, and so we looked at that as a game, and then you're trying to get a gauge as to what would that be like for some of our young guys. Plus there was an opportunity because we're watching a lot of our young guys play in the AAL, and then you're watching the AAL games and you're seeing some other players in the AAL as well that would sort of spark your attention. So it's a good opportunity to reward some of those players. Plus some of those players had already been in with us during pre-season, because we had the A campaign, if you remember, at the start of the season, where we played against the individual teams all played against each other. So we had a mix of some young players, some very young players, and then some guys from clubs, and as I said, some guys that had trained with us, because we had a good chunk of guys away in New Zealand during the summer, and those guys started pre-season a little bit later. So it's always a good window, because our numbers don't change like in terms of our senior squad, but if we've a good chunk of guys get picked for the national team, which is what we all want, then that leaves space in the building for a few weeks, and it's utilising that space when it's there. So to be fair, I thought the club guys were outstanding last week. How they apply themselves, the eagerness they have to play, and very diligent in terms of their off-field work. And I thought our senior guys that we have were good in terms of tying all those pieces together with the young guys and some of the club guys, and there was some older experienced guys in the team as well. So it was. I have to say it was a really enjoyable week, really enjoyable week. I thought there was lots of good stuff in the game as well. So that was really pleasing, and something that we definitely look at in the future. But it's I guess it's trying to understand the need that there is, But I think there's other teams that have that as well. In the past, we've had the British and Irish Cup, there's been the Celtic Cup, and so we're just trying to fill that space. But the club scene is vibrant. There's some of the Leinster clubs have been up towards the top of the AAL as well, so you want to see those. Obviously the big game this weekend, Tarf and Ternier, so we're watching some of those lads that we know very well now, with great interest, but it's good to reward some of those guys as well.
Leo, 2 new caps in your 23 as well for the November window. That's what this organisation is all about, isn't it? Is it not, Joe? Back?
Oh, sorry, yeah, with Ireland, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking Leinster, yeah. 3 new caps against Scarlets.
Sorry, 2 new caps.
No, exactly, yeah. And that's the thing, like you come back post November, and you've 2 more internationals in the group, like, which is great, you know. If you think back to this time last year, like Joe, I was going down to watch Joe McCarthy talk about the AL there. I was watching him play with Trinity against Lansdowne last November. Trinity had a big win against Lansdowne that day, and yeah, it was great. It was Tom Clarkson, actually, who's starting tied it for us this weekend, was playing as well. And yeah, but that's, you know, the rise and how quickly it can happen. It doesn't always happen like that, but you know, that's for young guys coming in. And that's the thing. Like they're that close to it. He made his debut in the Six Nations window against Cardiff, a game we lost, if you remember. Him and Dev, a lot of caps between the two of them that day. Joe was first, Dev was his 270th or whatever it was. Again, that learning piece is important. And Jimmy obviously played a lot more games with us, so you know he's played a lot of different positions. So to see him go into camp and how he acquitted himself like so well as well. He's coming into the game the first half against South Africa and have Etzebeth steamrolling at you early in the game, and you know how he dealt with that. But it's no real surprise to us because we've seen Jimmy for the last number of years here with us, and he's a great footballer, Jimmy. Versatility, you know, that he's played pretty much every position for us across the back line. So it's great for those guys. 2 very different stories now, but it's great for the 2 of them.
Leo, I know a lot of your focus and attention will be matters on field tomorrow, but off the field, the squads of 2011, 2012 are obviously being celebrated before the game, being introduced at half-time. I presume you'll miss the half-time introduction, but should be good to catch up with some of those lads.
That's amazing. Yeah, like it was such great times. You know, I don't think there's any images around there. Like some great characters in those teams. And it's great to get everyone together. Even I saw Richard Strauss there was down watching the team run today. Greg Feek was watching training yesterday. He's there today again. And that's the thing, like, you know, great teams made up of great characters. Don't always necessarily have to get along and agree with everything all the time. Need some strong characters in there. It's you know, and everyone's at a different stage, and you know, talking to even Johnny this week, obviously Johnny is the one, obviously is such a key character, particularly that 2011 team, the way the final played out, that's probably the thing that sticks in everyone's mind. And you know, Johnny still trucking it on out, like, it is incredible, really. But there's lots of people, and it's interesting. It's great because if you think about, like, you know, club rugby in the past, that's, you know, everyone's, you know, at different stages, and you can dip your head back in at different, like, as the careers go on, and everyone has different things going on in their personal lives with family and jobs and work and all the rest. But you know, to keep that connection, it's not that long ago, but you know, it's amazing to have that. So no, look forward to seeing some of the faces. I'm sure everyone will be a little bit nervous. There's a WhatsApp group going around. People are still slagging each other. So you don't want to be too sensitive with some of those individuals on there. But there's a great camaraderie, and there's a bond there that hopefully will last a lifetime. And that's what you want, you know, like the players there at the moment, you know, we talk about each season, it's trying to make memories of this group. You know, we have a group that's playing against Glasgow that want to play in the biggest games coming up now. So they want to be in the European games. They want to be there for the Six Nations, the internationals. You know, you see like the likes of Ross Byrne. He did the training with us on the Monday of Chile week, and you know, he's kicking the match-winning penalty at the end of the week for Ireland. You know, and that's like how quickly it changes. So everyone needs to be ready, take their opportunity. Talk about Joe McCarthy. Obviously, Joe's starting for us. He's back in with us this week, and we've a good competitive group. So, but it's about them, you know, making this is their time now. So to make memories, you know, individually and collectively. So, it's not going to be easy for us. Glasgow are very, very tough opponent that we've struggled with in the past. I know people will potentially talk about the last time Glasgow came here, but it's a totally different time now. Conditions this time of year tricky to play in, so you need to make sure we manage the conditions well on the day. It's going to be a tough battle for us. But it's going back to that point about players this generation of players trying to do something special that in the future they'll be here and being wheeled out at half time. So yeah, it'd be great. You're back to your point. It'd be great to see some of those faces from a very, very happy time in my life. Anyway.
Any more questions for live, or will you quick swap?
Sorry, Leo, do you think that because the URC is probably improved in terms of South African teams and all that, do you think that has an impetus maybe to the Welsh and the Scottish teams in terms of maybe their performances improving?
Yeah, but it's a competitive league, and everyone knows the importance of trying to be up towards the top end, because obviously everyone wants to win the competition for starters, but there's the qualification piece around Europe, so there's plenty to play for everybody, particularly the way the shield system works as well. So yeah, for us it's just trying to control it, because if we can't control what's happening with the other teams in the league, it's just controlling our own part. And there's lots of moving parts, as we know, for us at the start of the season. We've a number of guys that will get a bit of time to freshen up this week. Other teams are doing slightly differently. Again, there's no point us worrying what other teams are doing, so we're comfortable with what we're doing ourselves. But it's now about going out to deliver. So deliver big performances week in, week out. We have the internal competition, and we want to be our own standards. We're not too worried about what everyone else is doing. So just get to the standard that we want to achieve. But as I said, Glasgow won't make it easy for us. Well coached team, Franco Smith, very shrewd operator. You think back to that 2011 team. I think Franco was coaching Benetton at that point in time. Beat us pretty comfortably, if I remember, at the start of the season, when Joe was having a bit of heat on him at the time, if you remember. But again, very different time. But he's a very experienced coach, is the point, and that's our focus. What do we want to focus on? Well, that's what we want to focus on. Where everyone sits in the league it's not that relevant to us. We just want to focus on ourselves and accumulate as many points as we possibly can, and move on to the next week and do the same.